we're here to talk about the gender gap at venture capital firms in Southeast Asia. Joji mentioned some numbers earlier. I'll just repeat them. According to a report that we did earlier this year, about 77% of venture investors headquartered in Southeast Asia did not have a single woman in an investment decision-making role. The corresponding number for regional and global firms with Southeast Asia presence was about 67%. So that's basically the problem that we're going to discuss. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and their organizations, and then we can dive right into it. Rishika, we'll start with you.
Sure. Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in person, as Nick said, right? It's been long enough already. So I'm Rishika Chandan, Managing Director at Venturi Partners. We're a growth stage, consumer-focused fund, investing in what Nick said, the Valley of Death, which is Series C and D companies in Southeast Asia and India.
Pinn?
Yeah, hi everyone, good to be here, good morning. My name is Pinn and I'm a partner at Lightspeed Ventures Partner. We are a global early stage focused firm that has also, I guess, started to build out more multi-stage practices. In Southeast Asia, we focus largely on investing into consumer, fintech, and commerce enablement companies.
And Cristina?
I'm Cristina Ventura, I'm general partner at White Star Capital. We are a multi-stage investment platform present in 12 countries. We invest between 5 to 30 million for startup series A and B, tech agnostic, and we mainly focus as well on venture, but as well we are now launching venture debt, a digital asset fund, and a liquid fund. So we are raising 500 million at the moment, and I just opened our headquarters here in Asia with our teams, with Jeremiah, he's here as well, and planning to expand in the next few months as well, all over the region.
All right, thank you. Let's begin with the culture. Is the VC culture, the bros club mindset, the hustle that glorifies work at the expense of personal life, is that exclusionary by nature? Rishika, we can start with you.
So I'm not sure it's exclusionary by nature. I think it's very individualistic. Just by virtue of statistics, as you broadly spoke about, we are a minority, and so there is a tendency for us to underplay ourselves as we walk into rooms that are dominated by men. But I don't think it's as much of somebody else making us feel a certain way as it is about how we feel about that situation. So I don't think it's intentionally exclusionary in nature, but it's most certainly our own perception of how we feel about it.
Pinn, your thoughts?
Yeah. I think my thought is, I think it's definitely a work that is atypical. I think it requires sacrifice on personal life. We work a lot with people, we do a lot of networking, and it is exclusionary to the extent that it requires you to be working outside of normal 9 to 5, right? This post-work networking, there's travel to be done if you want to meet entrepreneurs across the region. And I think these are, this applies to both women and men as a function of the job.
Cristina, you're new here. How do you see the culture here as being different or similar to what you've seen outside?
So, very good point. I mean, I've been in Asia for 18 years, here in Singapore 3 before Hong Kong. And I lived in 7 different countries before here. So it's not only here, I agree, it's all over. And it depends on the nature of work. So it's a choice as well. And it's not only in private equity or venture capital. I mean, I come from tech. My background is purely business and growth. I was at Apple before opening Hong Kong and South China. And before that, private IPO. So it was always about hands-on, full-on, 15 hours, 7 days a week. And it's part of the nature of work. So it's a choice. So it's not men and women, or it's not East and West. I believe if you believe in what you do and you love it, doesn't matter the hours and doesn't matter what it takes, right? You just do it.
There have been several VC executives and entrepreneurs who have been accused of sexual harassment, but it did not impact their career. Well, I'm not talking just about here, but generally, globally, we've seen several cases. What sort of message does it send? Excuse me. What sort of message does it send to female VCs, aspiring female VCs and entrepreneurs, do you think? And again, Rishika.
Sure, no, happy to take this question because, I think it's an often underspoken topic. I think it's a sort of chicken and egg situation as you think about it, right? Women tend to feel like this is a topic that should not be publicized, and they very often want to just take it to their board if it is a founder with whom something's happened, and then if your board is all men, it becomes tricky to sort of get the message across. So I feel like having more women on the board is one way to solve for this. The other way to solve for this is women just speaking out and expressing if something has gone awry, or something, if they have been sexually harassed, or just even just harassed, right? So I think it's important for them to not hold back because of reputation, because of being misunderstood, because of how the world perceives it, but really just putting it out there, saying that this has happened and I'm unhappy about it, because that is when you're placing accountability onto somebody else. But unless you talk about it, it's really your accountability that you've not really fulfilled. So I just feel like, we need to speak about it if it happens to us, A, and then B, if there's more women representation at board levels, it just helps.
I'll just add to that and say, I think, well, first, maybe I'll just step back and premise that I feel like, because we're so young as an ecosystem in Southeast Asia, I think the cases, fortunately, are far further and, fewer in between relative to, I guess, headlines that make, mostly headline news that come from the West. But, generally, I think what it means for the message it sends here is, eventually you're accountable for your own choices, right? You can pick firms, pick your board that feels they're aligned with your values. I think it is, to a point, speak up. But I also think speaking up early, right? Like, don't make it, and at first signs of it, make sure there are supports or mentors that you can go to voice this thing up before it compounds and become a huge issue. And a lot of time it's really up to you to decide first and foremost who you want to surround yourself with and what kind of person you want to be.
Just to build on that as well, I believe as well is a way on how you position yourself, right from the very beginning. So you know who your investors are, or even who your partners are in terms of your people in the team, right? So don't put yourself maybe in a critical situation and say it beforehand. And men and women doesn't matter, right? Because sometimes can be or different races, different ages, different background. So how we bring as well this on the table, very early stage, to have coaches as well, we discuss that, to have some mentors. I always had mentors in my life. My professor at Harvard, for example, is a woman, and every single career change or everything that, happened to me, I always talk to her about what's your intake on that, how I would, respond to that. Never to be a victim, because I don't think that's a solution. I mean, we could write a book about what happened to our careers, right? But that's not the point. I think that it's all about karma as well. So they know when they did right or wrong, but to speak up as well and to share, said, this is not right. I many times stop people, men or women, said, I believe this is not right, because it affects, and put yourself as well boundaries and understand what is the limit of certain things, and make yourself treated as you would like to be treated. Not as a victim, but as empower yourself.
Are VCs really equipped to handle, even if women were to speak up early, as been said, what else can you do? What else, what other processes and, mechanisms can you have in place to make sure that there is enough, a system in place for women to come up and speak about those issues? And what other advice would you give to women in general if they're looking for a career in VC?
So I think two different questions there, right? I think the first question is really what can be done. So a number of things. I think having an organization that is well distributed between men and women in terms of just the workforce is important, because there's just collective strength in knowing that you're not singled out, or you're not one in an otherwise male-dominated work environment, right? So it just gives you a lot more comfort. Two is, of course, having just systems and processes and governance and sort of rules, right? Which I think is where the board can come in really handy, and to your question, where VCs can really help. I think, when we go into any company, these are policies that are openly tabled and openly discussed, and there is a mechanism where you can choose to come to an individual on the board or to the board collectively, either in an anonymous capacity or just say who you are and bring up the issue. So I think a number of different challenges, but I think on the softer side of things, right, as a VC, giving comfort to the founder or to any other member of the team to say that, hey, you can walk up to us and you can talk to us about anything and that we're here, is extremely important. And I think that is just our fiduciary responsibility at some level, of being a board member or of just being a VC, is that there is more color to capital than just the color of money. So I think that's sort of answering your first question. I think in terms of the second question, the way I'd say it is, stop looking at the world like a male-female division as you walk into anything. If you've got a question, if you've got a doubt, if you've got an opinion, it's important to express it. It doesn't matter what gender, race, ethnicity, or where you come from. I think all these are all figments of our own imagination more than they are actually in reality, at least in the context of Southeast Asia, has been said, right? I think it's lesser of an issue here, and we don't have to make it bigger than it really is. And I think having mentors, as Cristina said, right? I think all of us here have leadership coaches. We have mentors across different needs that we might have at different stages of our career, and really over-indexing on that and really seeking out that guidance and that assistance at every stage of your life is super important, both personally and professionally.
I think on the advice point, I think two things. One, choose your capital. I think it's hard. It's easy to just take money, but the hard work is, going to do ref checks on whoever is going to join your board, listening to those in these situations. If there's smoke, there's usually fire, right? And then take the right call. And if it takes, you one more month to raise capital from the right person, or to even talk to the board and say, talk to the firm that you're taking money from and say, like, hey, I prefer a different representative, a different representative on your board. So I think that's one very critical point. The second one is actually, I think, on a point of mentor, and I don't feel like this is something that women are the only one that should be, solving the problem. I think you should be reaching out to even male mentors, right? Like I don't to get alliance, to share with them, like, these are my concerns and these are what I need you to help me with, in both, in times of need, but also in times of progression. Like, hey, I need advice, and I think taking advice from a diversity of people, including men, actually is really helpful for women. And I just think women don't do enough of that. Yeah.
So maybe a bit as well, a different point of view from the results point of view, or the value creation or the returns, right? At the end of the day, it's proven that human capital or diversification, or of course, if we bring a more inclusion type of organization into your board, brings better results. That's facts and figures talk, right? So if we bring from that point of view, the more diverse your team is, not only women, but definitely different backgrounds, different ages, different races, different experiences, the better results you will have. So that's something that we deliberately and very consciously put into place. So we have 12 offices around the world. We have weekly calls, and we make sure that we have diverse in every single part of the process, right? So not only women, but we are always ensuring that we interview very different people. I mean, we build a very strong team here, the best people we could find in the market, and we are ensuring as well that internally and externally, we build a very strong kind of coaching system. So that's something I'm creating as a platform now, the growth as a service. So the GAS, we call it. So in the GAS, we have different areas. One, of course, is global expansion, but another one is talent management, and even coach as a service. So that's something that I want to offer to our, I don't call it startups, our partners, our entrepreneurs, that whatever they want to be as a part of their career, it's not the same to lead a company when you are A stage or B, or for sure pre-IPO. I mean, I've been through that, right? So I know that it takes another skill set, another mindset, another type of way of presenting yourself and being out there in front of investors, in front of partners, in front of corporates. So how you bring yourself out there as a man, woman, doesn't matter, but yes, how to bring your skills into the next level through this kind of growth as a service that we are going to offer. So definitely coaches, but as well different areas of integrating diversity and inclusion.
So you mentioned talent. Is there a talent crunch, and that's the reason we have this gap, or is it just that we're too nascent, as you guys have said before? And Cristina, we could start with you.
So definitely, there's not many people, as we know. I mean, numbers talk again, right? It's less than around 2% of women in VC and PE, in the percent of women. In terms of diversity, again, there's a lot of huge gaps there. So first question is, how can we solve the problem? I believe is education. So one is education from universities. I'm in a program now, weekly calls with Harvard to talk about that. We are in discussions on how to bring a catalytic type of leadership. So there's a book coming out, there's a case study coming on this, on how to bring catalyst leadership for building the skill set for the next talent in the world, right? Because it's not just business and tech. The future will be business, tech, and humanity, creativity, a much deeper sense of softer skills, as we call it, which are very hard, in fact. But we need another type of talent that it's not only about skills on the hardcore, but the left side of the brain, but more on the right side of the brain. So that's one. And another one is more about diversification in terms of background, right? So how can you bring more people in the startup community and in the VCPE that are more from, let's say, from corporate, more from the field, more from previous startups, and now they want to be analyzing companies. We have taken brilliant people on that they give us a very, very different mindset than just the logical, analytical, or kind of financial modeling point of view. So this is the type of gap that I believe. But there's definitely a solution, and a lot of universities, I mean, NUS, NTU, I'm mentoring students every weekend, and they are truly getting into this gap as well. So there's a huge potential.
Sorry, to premise, I assume when you say gap, they're like more gap in senior.
The 77% number. The 77% number that I mentioned earlier.
Got it. I think there's a need to, diagnose the gap. I want to also, I think we should all align that we're in a very infancy stage of VC ecosystem here. And a lot of reasons why you see this gap could potentially be because a lot of founders, GPs, were men that took risk to start funds themselves, and fund don't expand and become successful and become large overnight, such that you can actually there are rooms for younger, more gender diverse female male employees to rise up. So I want to acknowledge that, right? I think there has been way more men that took risks, forgo very stable salary, right? Go out there and hustle and find funds, and that's the beginning of many, many firms, right? The GPs, that's the reason why a lot of them are male. But obviously there's the extreme, which I guess a lot of us are, pointed towards or hoping that it doesn't happen, or see signs of it where, young, well, there are a lot of females at the analyst class, how many of them actually do get to rise up? I think it's too early to really tell. I think the good news is we're all talking about it. So I think awareness is a good start to where this could eventually land. I think what we can do to close this gap is more as leaders of the firms. I think you should put in place very clear guidelines on what it takes for folks to be promoted, and this guideline should be consistent. I think women should take a much stronger, let's say, a push for, I guess, a more, I want to say promotional, but I think they should be aware that it is up to them to manage their professional development, whether it is to, give feedback in the right way and ask for feedback in the right time. Make sure you align yourself with, good mentors, both male and female, and key decision makers of your professional career development. I think these are broad policies that, folks should think about. And then, I go back to, at the end of the day, you're the key decision holder of your destiny, right? Pick the firm that you feel like, you have the best chance of excelling at, and avoid those that you think the values are just not aligned with your own.
No, I mean, completely agree. I think the way I just look at it a little differently to say that, just very, very traditionally speaking, women have always, been perceived as people that excel on the softer skill side, empathy, communication, ability to get people together, et cetera, right? And so you'll see fewer women took on finance as a sector because that was just very quantitative, very just mathematical, dry. You sit on your computer and you work in Excel all day long, you analyze charts, et cetera, right? So I think that was sort of one piece of the pie. And then if you just go way back in history, you also see how responsibilities in a family were distributed, right? Where it was just naturally assumed that women will stay home and look after children, and that has changed dramatically. And so I think we're just early on that curve. It's not that this gap is sort of fundamental. It's just that we've just started that journey now, and we did that DealStreetAsia report as well, right? In which we see that at entry level now, both in VCs as well as founders, you have women who have identified how to work it out. How can you sort of live a full life, have all your aspirations, aggressively chase them without really having to give up on any piece of the pie? And I think, we're inherently good at juggling multiple responsibilities, and I also think that the ecosystem now is very supportive and very encouraging. And I feel like, all of these entry-level roles that have an incredible distribution and availability of women talent as they move up the value chain and serve the time, we will have a far better distribution both at founder level as well as at fund level. I think we just need to go out and take more risks, and as long as you take that, you will find your way.
Talking about your personal journeys, do you feel you've had to work a lot harder to get to where you are? And has it gotten any easier now? Rishika, again, we'll start with you.
It's a theory of relativity, you know what I mean? I mean, it's sort of difficult. If you ask me have I had to work harder, I'd like to believe yes, but not just harder to men, just generally just had to work hard, right? I do think, though, that there initially was a bias of, as I said, just more empathetic and sort of talk to founders, so let's just do more sourcing and let's just get more founders and let's just get more deals and let's leave the analytical part to somebody else. So I think that was a chasm that had to be crossed. I think that was sort of something that I had to work harder to prove myself at, and all the finance degrees that you might have sitting behind you doesn't really matter, right? So in that sense, yes, but I do think I have been fortunate enough to have colleagues and an overall work environment that has been very supportive. I've also been a founder for 7 years, so I've also gone to funds and tried to raise capital as a complete minority, and been rejected several times over. But I don't think that's any different for anybody else. So I just think that whether you've had to work harder or not is really how you look at it relative to your environment. Sometimes you're working harder, but we also get a lot of things much easier. So it's sort of important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment. I don't think I'm here to claim that we've worked harder than our male peers. I do think we work harder beyond the typical 9-to-5 job because of what the job requires us to do and what greatness requires of us in our industry. But I also been very fortunate to have had a lot of good mentors, both male and female, very gender neutral, like hiring recruiters, hiring committees. We work for funds that are almost gender blind, right? Like it doesn't really matter who you are. They talk to me as if I'm just another one gender neutral candidate, and they evaluate me basis my experiences and what my aspirations and my drive. And it's probably I consider myself quite lucky, and I hope more and more women also continue to find similar opportunities to my own.
Yeah, fully support. more than harder as well is smarter, even to answer your second question, right? So with the time, I mean, I've been 20 years hardcore on business growth and big corporates, but then with the time I realized it's harder and smarter in the sense that your network is your net worth, right? So important as well how to connect. So for example, now with Pinn, we are at the Kaufman Fellows together. We knew each other, all of us, we knew each other before this panel. When I saw their names, like, I know these girls. Because it's good as well to understand that with the time and the more this area grow, the more we have now the power as a community, right, to support each other and to enhance the growth of this part of the world. Because there's opportunities for everybody. I love the idea as well of co-creation, cooperation, and more than, of course, hard. We will always work hard. At the end of the day, our life is our work, and I give my life to this, and definitely want to create value to all our stakeholders. And the main thing is how to be now smarter in the way we do it, and not to fall maybe in the mistakes of Silicon Valley, right? The good news is that we have a white canvas ahead of us. It's a huge, massive opportunity, as Nick was mentioning. It's brilliant times for us, golden age. So let's take it on the right side, bring opportunities, bring solutions, because there's definitely a lot of, I don't like to call it problems, and yes, challenges, but let's bring the positive side of it. And how can we together, as community with you as well, guys with all amazing reports, to bring solutions into all the challenges that we are facing.
We'll take
in the arc of time, it's definitely gotten easier. It has to be. I mean, the fact that we're all here talking about this, like, it's a start of a generation that would care more about this, whether you're a male or woman. I think I would imagine this happening in 1940s in the U.S. Right? Like, I think it's a luxury. I think a lot of us, at least a lot of us have fathers, husbands, sons who are very supportive of working mothers or aspire to be aspire for someone like themselves to be that. I think we have policies at work that are quite supportive for women. Whether it's coaching budgets, whether it's maternity leave, stuff like that. Very hybrid working environment that we're now ever so familiar with. I just imagine, like, if you look, I don't think my career is way too short to say it's gotten clearly easier, but I would like to imagine where we are is definitely better than where a lot of people, where we were 10 years ago, or if this was built like 50 years ago, right?
I think just one thing that I'd like to say is that, we tend very often to say we got lucky rather than we got here by making the right choices and hustling our way up. And I think we need to attribute whatever we've done a little less to luck and a little more to ourselves. I think that is an area that all of us could do a better job at.
We'll take an audience question. How do you deal with your own emotions at work? Are there times you felt undermined or a need to be liked? And Cristina, maybe begin with you.
Yeah, I love this question. Very smart. I mean, I believe a lot on taking ownership, right? So we can totally take control of our emotions and ownership and decide how do we want to feel, right? Before I was in another industry that was 70% woman. So there's a lot of drama there, right? Very interesting. But then, I said, girls, put yourselves together, right? And let's do this. So on the other side, it's how you take things, right? I'll try now to have very thick skin, strong stomach, and take things like with a pinch of salt, and even with a laugh, with humor. I'm from Barcelona, right? So it's just, let's take it with a bit of humor here, and not take anything personal or anything wrong. It could be sometimes this cultural misunderstandings, or I never take things in a negative way. And about the being liked or not, for me, more than being liked is about to be respected. So I had this brilliant question one day from a professor, like, what do you prefer, to be liked or to be respected? You have to choose. You cannot be sometimes both. And definitely, I personally prefer to be respected. So it's how you take things and what you make out of it. And definitely about learning. So learn from these experiences and not take too much emotions that can affect outcome, right? At the end of the day, it's results count.
I would just note that nobody would ask this question probably if the panelists were all men about emotions. So, Pinn, anyway, since it's been asked.
I don't have anything too much to add. In fact, I've asked this question to Cristina at some point before, and I think her mantra is really good, right? Do you want to be respected? Do you want to be effective versus you want to be liked? Then you make your own decision, right? And I think a lot of time it's also testing your hypothesis, right? I feel like it's why we could sometimes fall into a trap of like, hey, I think I'm not being liked, but people don't perceive us that way. Like, go test, go ask them, right? A lot of time, actually, when I, ask my husband, hypothetical situations, and he's like, no, men doesn't think like that, right? And I get really stressed. Like, men actually, don't care. Then you recalibrate, right? Like, actually, my peer or whoever's sitting across the table didn't feel what I feel at all. Then you're actually just feeling it by yourself, right? So, but I want to recognize that yes, we do have, I think we're a set of women that do still feel emotions and have emotions. It's just how we deal with them, I think, could be quite different, and it takes, years of learning to do that. Yeah.
I think all of us are just a culmination of emotions, right? It's just that certain individuals, regardless of gender, choose to express and certain don't. And I think women tend to express their emotions more, and to me that's a big strength. And it is a strength because you see what you get and you get what you see, right? So there is absolutely there's no undertone. So I think the way to deal with emotions is with authenticity and confidence. If you're feeling underwhelmed, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling lack of respect, speak up, express yourself in a very objective way, and have the confidence to believe that this is not coming from a bias, but this is just coming from, just how you feel about things. Because very often, we want to express our emotions, but they're coming from a place of, I am being treated unfairly. And I think if you can just eliminate that from your mind, to say that no one's being unfair to you, and this is just a situation and it's your perception, and maybe if you talk about it, you will come out with a very, very different solution, right? But if you never talk about it, you would never know. And I think it's really important, therefore, that lead with emotions and lead with authenticity, and also be so open to taking feedback then, right? So don't get emotional and then shut down to say, but this is how I feel and I don't care what you have to say. So I think dealing with emotions at work is always a two-way process. Trust your colleagues enough to be able to know that they will find a solution for you.
Are LPs pushing for gender diversity at all, and are they gender diverse themselves?
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, absolutely. And last week there was a mega LP landing in Singapore, and I'd say anecdotally, I think it's at least 50% of LPs that I speak to actually have female decision makers, and I think that's great. But I also think they're pushing not just for gender diversity. I think they're pushing for diversity in general. They're pushing for ESG. They're pushing for many agendas, which is really good. Yeah. So.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. I think we're seeing the same. There's definitely the questions being asked. How many women founders have you invested in? What is your team diversity like? Et cetera, or even how many women founders have you evaluated? Whether or not you choose to invest in them is completely independent. That's an investment process. But similarly, ESG impact, etc. So it's definitely top of mind, and is being softly communicated to funds to say, guys, take it seriously.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Yeah, we have 800 LPs, and all of them at some point, right, ask how many women are on the IC as well, or how many are more decision makers, and what's your action for that? So we are dedicating as well an area of ESG to count, for example, in our startup, so how many gender and so on we have, and the actions that we are taking for that. So the diversity part as well, very important. Different backgrounds, they are asking as well for that. So that's a great news that LPs are totally as well part of it.
We'll take another audience question. What are the repercussions of the diversity problem in VC? Is there an impact on fundraising or investment decisions? Cristina, start with you.
So definitely there's no diversity, then the results will speak at some point, right? So it's a matter of outcome. We are taking actions on that for sure. So in every IC as well, we discuss diversity, we discuss inclusion, And in terms of fundraising now, that's why we're putting that into action, right? To make sure that we tackle this opportunity. And we see definitely, with me as an example as well, right? That I come from more into business background and, having worked and studied in different countries in the world, I bring another type of vision to the firm, and working with brilliant people is totally, possible. But it's about as well the outcome that we are expecting for that.
I'll just answer two questions at the same time because I think these are very. The following questions for context was for us to share some examples of policies and actions taken by our firm to promote diversity. So I'll say, to the earlier point, I think it's hard to define repercussions, and venture is a very long asset class, right? A very long-term asset class, sorry. But what I can say for sure, at least at Lightspeed, when diversity has definitely served us very well. For a lot of our investments that were big hits like Snapchat, Affirm, Pintoto, Oyo rooms, these were not unanimous decision. And in the room we have folks who are ex-doctors, ex-operators, financiers. So I think those, the fact that happened, we have a very high number, relatively to other funds, a high number of female decision makers in our firm. So we're very proud of, and those have really served us well from a positive repercussion of diversity perspective. And some of the examples of policies and actions, I think just from the top, right? Like, every recruiting panelist or interview panelist is gender diverse. I think that's the start, right? To hire anybody, we have folks talking to you that are gender diverse. I think internally, we have, I don't know, the equivalent of POSH committee, but diversity committee to, talk about how we can do more, and also talk about how can we make this a very safe place for both women and men to share what they're hearing. Sometimes actually male colleagues come up and say, hey, I think that statement feels, a little bit, offensive if I were a woman. And I think that's great, right? To have men sharing these things and, making sure it's top of mind for the fund. And I think lastly, I go back to, Venture is a very small firm, right? Like if we, and it's much easier, and I think it's a privilege to be working in this kind of environment, to have a very small group of people to call each other out, right? When we have founders come in and, someone hears, something different, and another colleague can say hey, she was, I want to call out that she was a woman making that statement, would you have felt the same if this was men? Regardless of the answer, right? But just talking about it, like how this, woman entrepreneur had come across to you and could have been a different, interpretation if this was a man talking, right? I think these are just great conversations to constantly bring this this day-to-day actions that bring diversity and gender understanding top of mind to everybody in the firm.
Yeah, I think I'll answer the second question first, which is that 50% of the Venturi team is women. So 4 out of 8. We have a good representation of women on the IC as well. And the reason I mentioned that first is that how does that help us with investment decisions, right? It's obviously, like Pinn said, a very long asset class, so don't want to hoot before we get the exits. But the way it actually helps us is that certain products, categories, services are just catered to women as the target audience. And then if there's no woman on the IC, you're not getting that representation in terms of whether or not that product or service will hit home. Mom and baby as a category, household products and services, right? There are certain categories where decision makers are women, and it's important to get their point of view. I think that's one. Two is, just generally when you're looking at a business model, there is a left field way of thinking that different people can bring to the table. Doctors, people from finance background, men, women, young analysts that are the Gen Zs, right? So it's just important to have as much diversity, because I think it's complicated as it is for us to predict the future and to see whether or not a business is going to be successful. And then if you're going to have blinders and look at it only from one angle, you're definitely reducing the probability of success. So yeah.
And that's all the time we have today. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you to the audience for joining us.
Thank you so much, everyone.